Okay, so new week, new video. In this video, we're going to be taking a little look at doing these wheel rims in chrome. Now, whenever we do these whenever we do the chrome, for instance, we always spray a little speed shape as a tester. So we put the same amount of coats on the tester as we do on the part. Now, I'm using my W300, which is a little 1.2, the Multimix Hyper Silver, which you've seen me use before, because out of the silvers that we've tested so far, that to me seems the best one to go for. Now, you'd see that the wheels there, they're not black, they're actually a very dark grey, so it's a 50-50 mix of jet black and brilliant white, so it gives it a dark grey. Now, from the massive amount of this stuff that we've used, we find that a dark grey actually covers a lot easier and a lot faster than, say, a black does, or like the white. I've just found that for us it works best. So the actual rims and everything, they've all been keyed up, they've been epoxied, they've been rubbed down, they've then been wet and wet primed, and we do it with base and clear. So the grey was base coat and then we put clear coat over the top. Now we're using express clear, and normally what I'll do is at 5 o'clock the night before I'll clear them, and then I'll come in the next morning, give them a very short bake just to make sure everything's nice and dry before we apply the chrome. Now you'll just see there I was sort of wiggling my finger. So the way to set a gun up for this is to turn the needle all the way in so nothing's coming out, and bring it out so there's just the tiniest amount of this stuff coming out of it. Now I'm just explaining here that for each coat we put on the wheels, we'll put a coat on the shape first. So not to have any problems, we'll do a coat on the shape and then we'll move on to the wheels, so that we know with each coat that everything's going to plan before we start on the wheels. Now you won't see a massive amount of change on coat number 1, and it's paramount with this stuff to make sure that you are not putting this on wet. If you look, it barely looks like anything is coming out of the spray gun. I am literally almost overspraying on top of this, so you see there's like barely anything coming out. I'm just putting the lightest possible coats on that I can. Now I've got this pretty much down to a T now, because we've used litres and litres of this stuff. So I'll keep my distance back, I will just gently, just literally feather this stuff on, and you can see, you know, it does change the reflection a little bit, but we're not talking mentally on the first coat. But I will literally, I'm going as light as possible, I'm going to keep my distance back, and I'm literally almost dusting this stuff on. You do not want to see it going wet. The second this stuff goes wet, you'll see it go quite cloudy, and if you're not lucky, that cloudiness will stay, it will not come off. You will end up with like very, very, very dulled off silver look rather than a slightly reflective chrome look, which this gives. Like we said before, it's not a full chrome. Before you clear it, I'd say it's got more reflection, but once cleared you do lose a bit of that reflection. Now in the booth it doesn't look amazing, but once you're outside it's actually got natural light on it. It's got a lot more reflection, obviously, because there's a lot better light, and it's ambient light rather than direct light like in the booth, so it does make a big difference to how it looks. So you can see that the first coat wise, this is barely even changing how this looks, and this is how you want it. You want to really light, really careful. As soon as you over apply this stuff, then that's the job knackered. Now supposedly you can wipe it off with panel wipe or something like that. We have tried with a tester to do that, and you will just end up with wipe marks when you start trying to recoat it, because even when we come in this morning, we will not try to tack rag these, we'll just airline them off and go straight over them. So you can see there where it hits wet, it leaves that dull almost look in the middle, and when you're applying it wet like that, it can really mess the final finish up and leave it very, very patchy. So you just want to go really, really, really gentle. Now because I'm going so light, I don't mind, because it's probably taken me, I don't know, 4 or 5 minutes to go around these, going over these with 2 coats back to back, very, very lightly, very, very gently. And you can see now it's starting to take some of that silver look on this second coat. And I will repeat this for 4 coats, but I'll do the first 2 coats and then I'll leave it a good 20 minutes to let all the solvents evaporate out of the surface of it. Then I'll go and get a brand new clean microfiber, and because you're pretty much overspraying this stuff on, but unlike paint, it's almost like thinners that you're blowing onto it rather than paint. Okay, it's a very thin, very viscous material that you're spraying on, and it's just like a carrier for the silver itself. There's not a lot to it, so it doesn't land rough or anything like that. So you can just get a cloth, and any excess overspray, because we are literally dusting and dusting and dusting, you can just go around it with a cloth very carefully, and just wipe round it. So rather than tack ragging it, at this stage then we can wipe round it very gently. Now if it's plastic parts that you're doing, I would be either very careful when you're wiping it, or don't wipe it at all, because obviously you've got a cloth that can hold static, and then you go wiping a plastic part and that can cause static on the surface, and then that can cause issues with how the silver lays, because you get little static areas on the part, and then when you're trying to lay the silver, any overspray etc is attracted to the static, and it marks and mars that section of it. So you can see there, I'll just give a little view inside that wheel there on that second coat. It's looking quite nice, so I'm happy with where that's at that stage. As far as I go along, I'll just top up as and when I need to. I think for this we probably used maybe 400 or 500 mil of this. Now obviously with something like wheels, you're losing a lot of it because you're almost spraying through rather than spraying at a panel, so you lose a little bit through that. And at the same time, because it's so thin and you're almost dusting this stuff on, you do end up using like more than what you think, especially on little fiddly parts like this. You know, a lot of it's pretty much going straight out through the fillers. It's just the nature of the beast when you're trying to really dust stuff on, and anyone who's sprayed bike frames or anything like that will know that you tend to end up, it'll take me more paint to paint like a small frame than it will to do a wing for a car, just because 90% of it's just getting lost into the air. So take your time is the biggest thing I can say with this. These 2 first coats, if you're careful, then you've got some nice warmth. So obviously we're in a proper booth, the booth's set at 25 degrees, so all the air that is circulating through, there's a nice warm circulating draft basically that is running through the booth, which is really helping to flash this silver layer off. And we're going very fine, and obviously because it's got quite a bit of heat there, these panels are staying nice and warm, so that, you know, it just makes the whole process that little bit quicker. Now I'll do these 2 coats, and then as I said, what I'll do is I will literally leave the booth running for maybe, I don't know, 20 minutes, and then I'll come and put the next 2 coats on. I'll just wipe it off in between, and you will see me doing this in a second, but I'll wipe it off in between, just to make sure that everything's looking nice, and remove any of the overspray off before I start applying the next coat to it. Now don't get too carried away with trying to overload it and build it up too soon. Again, and I try and teach this to people on training days, try and build it up to where you want it. Don't go too far, because if you go too far you're going to end up with issues. Whereas if you slowly build it up to where you want it, then you can get there a lot safer and a lot easier. And especially for this chrome, this is the way that I would say go about it. So you can see now it's taking on that chrome look, and as it catches the light you can really see that silver layer reflecting through now. And this is straight after the last coat, so at this stage I've still got to give these a wipe and 2 more coats, but it's really starting to take that silver look on now quite nicely. And I have to say, when it's done, it does look rather nice. The key to it is getting the smoothest possible layer of clear down that you can, and then taking the whole process as slowly as possible. So here I am literally touching this as gently as I can with the cloth, making sure to get full coverage on the cloth on the panel, but I don't want to be scrubbing at it. I literally just want to be very gently running this cloth around, just to try and remove any surface overspray that might have settled on these parts. And also, because I've been out of the booth for 20 minutes and the booth's been running, there's a potential that maybe some dust or something has landed on there. So just to be 100% sort of vigilant as far as bits and bobs go, then I'm doing this. Now the reason that I wouldn't use a tack rag is because a tack rag obviously has that tacky adhesive to it, and if that rubs off on this chrome or on the clear coat before you start, you've got no hope. It will just make a mess of it straight away. So just a dry cloth, brand new preferably, something that's very, very soft. This was just like a 2-pack out of Co-op, I think, on the way in the morning, like £1.60 for 2 of them. Then, because we've got a stat gun, and I did mention to you before about the static with the cloth wiping in between, I'm just giving it a very quick buzz around with the stat gun, just to try and be on the safe side that I'm not introducing any static with the cloth that could cause me issues down the line when I start putting this second coat on. Now, when I put the second stage on, so this would be coat number 3 and coat number 4. Now I will do this exactly the same as the first 2 coats. I'm going to go very, very light, just dusting it on. I'm keeping the air pulled at all times, so I'm just letting the paint on and off. Again, that extra air that's coming out the gun is helping everything flash off, and you can see there, you know, it's gaining a really nice silver look now and a nice reflection, and this is the 3rd really thin coat. So using that, I'd say mid to dark grey really does help for coverage with this, I found. It just gives, personally I think, a quicker but more even general look at the end of it, because we tried this on little shapes like that speed shape, and then we tried it up to a panel which is around about 1.5 meters by 1.5 meters squared, which is a huge area to try and do with chrome like this, and we were managing to lay it up with a big gun very carefully and get it even on a panel like the size of a bonnet. Now it is very difficult, but it can be done, and even on bits like this you want to take your time to make sure that you've got everything as evenly covered as possible, because if you go wetter in one area than another, then obviously the chrome look's not going to look even on the panel, and it might look a bit brighter or a bit duller in one area than another. So, and it's not the cheapest stuff, so you know, you do want to have a bit of a practice with this first on something like a test panel to make sure that the main stage that you're starting off with is done and dry enough properly. That's another reason we do the tester, to make sure that when I start spraying the next morning, that this clear layer that I'm putting this over is cured enough at this point. If you start trying to spray this over an uncured surface, so to speak, then it will almost instantly dull off on you, no matter how light you try and put it on. You need a nice cured layer there for it to stick to, but at the same time you don't want to leave it a massive amount of time. If it cures too much, then obviously you could end up with problems with adhesion or anything like that. So we'll clear the night before, come in first thing in the morning, a short bake to warm them through and just to make sure that top surface is cured after it's air dried overnight, and then literally come straight in and start layering it up. Now I've put all 4 coats of the chrome on now, so I've had a look around these. I'm happy that it's nice and even and it's up to coverage. So the next stage is going to be the clear. Now we're using an express clear, simply because it flashes off really quickly. The less time things can stay liquid wet on top of this, the better, the more it will preserve the silver layer. So if you've got a clear that's got a really long flash off, I wouldn't be using that. I'd be using something that flashes off as fast as possible, to try and keep as much of the luster in the chrome as you can. Now you will notice that even at the end it will have lost quite a bit of its reflection. It won't stay this reflective if you do clear coat it. Now we have tried using like a water-based sealer over it, but even so it will still lose some of its reflection. Now I've tried with a water-based sealer and I've tried without, and there's no difference. For me personally, whether I use a water-based sealer or not, it still loses the same amount of reflection, so we don't bother anymore. We just go straight over with the clear. Now again, one thing I'd say, to be fair, is don't be scared when it does this. Immediately it just looks knackered. You want to go the same way with this. So we're putting, like, the first coat's going to be a half coat, so it's basically looking at half coverage on that panel, but it will lose its reflection. But at the same time, don't stress. As long as you're only putting a half coat and you're not putting a wet coat, do not even worry about it. Then the second coat, I'm going to put another half a coat on, but I'm going to give it probably a good 10 minutes flash off in between. Even though this is an express clear, I'm going to leave it as long as possible. And then when I put that second half coat on, it'll be a very, very thin but sealed, closed coat all over. I'll then give that about 20 minutes, and then I'll put a full wet coat or two on top of that, and then that'll give it its final real good clear protection. Now, there are some companies that you can buy extra UV additive from. I know Jordan at Multimix sent me a little bit out for one of the jobs that I was doing. So if you really want to try and get the most life from this, you could ask to see if they can supply you with a bit of extra UV additive that you could put in the clear, which may help. But to be honest, as an overall product, I've had test panels that have been sprayed in this stuff now for a good 12 months, and they're in our back room. They're not in direct sunlight, but they are in bright light all day, every day. Some of them have been in and out of the workshop multiple times. I can't see any dulling off. They still look as good as the day that I did them. So it just shows that this will last if it's done properly. We once upon a time had the hydrochrome system in. Massive investment, and it was horrendous to use. If it went right, it was brilliant, but 9 times out of 10, the smallest thing could mess it up, and it just wasn't worth the hassle for us. Now, here I'm coming in again with the second half coat. Now, I want this half coat to be just enough to give me one full closed coat over this panel. I don't want it to be at the point where it's wet. I just want it closed, and that's enough. So just nice and gentle, don't overload it. My normal way of spraying is I would go quite wet and chuck a load on. I want to take my time to just try and put enough on till it's wet and then stop, and that will be enough. So you can see there, now it's fully wet. It's lost a little bit of the clarity of the reflection, but it's still very reflective, and especially when you get this stuff outside, it looks a different kettle of fish again, because obviously the lighting outside is very different to the lighting inside. So it's got a lot more realistic look outside the booth than it does have in the booth. And if you look back to the original video that I did on this stuff, you can see some shots of it outside as well as in the booth. But this being a little bit something different, I thought I'd video this and shoot this for you guys so you can see, how I go about the application for this, because I've had a lot of people ask me about this Hyper Silver. I've got one coming from another brand soon to have a bit of a play with. Whether it will be as good or not, I don't know. Again, we'd have to do some testing with it, and if it turns out that it is as good or better, for instance, I don't know, then we'll show that one as well. But for us so far, this stuff's worked great from Multimix. I will leave a link in the description for this, as always, for you guys, from our sponsors over at SP Supplies. So if you want anything from them, head over, take a look, check some of this silver out. But as you can see, as a whole, if you're nice and careful and you follow a very, very careful, I wouldn't say detailed process, but you've got to be on it. You've got to be on the process with this. One slip up with going too wet, or cleaning it in the wrong way or anything like that could just completely jeopardize the job. And it's hard not to want to tack it off in between the coats of silver, and when you've left a panel overnight, the first thing you'd love to do is tack it off the next morning. But just don't. Just be extra careful and don't. So from that coat that you saw me doing there, I gave it 20 minutes with the booth running on spray, which is running at 25 degrees, and then I'm coming in with one wet coat now of this, again, express clear. So this isn't normal clear that we use. This is literally some express clear that we have in, that we only really use these days for doing this chrome work with. We've got a load of it a bit back with the plan to use it for bumper corners and stuff like that, but it's a bit too hard to polish. But for this chrome, if anything, that makes it ideal because you can lay it up quite wet and quite flat. It flashes off really quick, so it preserves the chrome better than, say, your average clear would. But at the same time, you know, it's very hard wearing, it's very scratch resistant. So when you've got a coating like this, which is obviously, it costs quite a bit, you know, when you're coating stuff like this up, because just the chrome itself is about £50 something a tin. So if you're looking to get a little set of wheels done like this, it's not the cheapest job. But at the same time, sometimes the wait for chrome plating and custom work like this particular customer might be doing, then, you know, it might be the better option for you. Pardon me, it's been a long day. But overall, you know, if it's done in the right way and you take your time, it will come out rather nice. So I know it's a little bit of a different video, and a little bit longer than my last few videos have been, but I hope you've enjoyed this, guys. I will see you the same time next week, and I think possibly maybe next weekend I might put an extra little video up as well, because obviously a few of you have seen my video from a few weeks back or a month or so back where I talked about mental health, and it is Mental Health Awareness Month, so I might do another little video chatting to you guys about a few things on that, maybe next weekend or something like that. But it'll be an extra video, it won't be a main video like the last one. I'll just add it in as an extra little video, and I'll do it on a live, the same as I have with this. So if anyone wants to come on and have a chat during the video, or just come and have a natter and join in, then you're very welcome to. Thanks for watching, guys. I'll see you again soon, and bye for now.
My heart rages around like an ocean in my head, because there are so many things that I let